Imagine a world where the heart of the home held a terrifying secret, where the sturdy walls of a Viking longhouse imprisoned a silent truth. Behind every fierce warrior, every legendary explorer, stood a woman, often overlooked yet essential. Her life was often a brutal test of survival, marked by absolute control, pervasive fear, and stifling silence. The shocking reality of Viking marriage, hidden in their epic saga's shadows, was far more brutal than any battle these men ever fought. Before we dive deeper, help us expose history's darkest secrets. What's the most shocking truth you've ever learned about the past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you have a hunger for untold stories, hit that subscribe button and like this video to join our growing community right now. The Vikings are famous for fearsome warriors and incredible journeys across the seas. We picture them with horned helmets, though rarely worn, sailing longships into unknown lands, seeking riches and glory. They were brave explorers who discovered new worlds, leaving their mark on distant continents. But while their ships cut waves and their axes carved enemies, a different darkness waited back home. Hidden inside the heart of their communities, behind sturdy wooden doors, a secret truth lay heavy on women's lives. This secret wasn't about battle or plunder, but the harsh reality of daily life and marriage itself. For Viking men, marriage was rarely about soulmates or romantic love. Instead, their marriages were cold calculations, securing power, gaining land, and ensuring the family name lived on with strong children. Marriages formed alliances, combined wealth, and produced heirs. Love, if it came, was an unexpected bonus, not a requirement. It was a union of practicality, not deep affection. In this world, a Viking wife was often seen as property, not an equal partner. Like a valuable sword or sleek longship, she was owned by her husband and his extended family. Her worth was coldly measured in practical terms, like fertile land she brought or healthy children she could bear. Her family would sell her for gleaming silver, fine cattle, or other valuable goods. This exchange, a dowry, showed her value and often helped support her in her new home. It wasn't about her feelings or wishes. It was a transaction, a business deal that secured her future and strengthened her new family's standing. Her true worth, from the family's perspective, was in the dowry she brought. This could be land, valuable goods, or money, and was often a key part of the marriage agreement. Beyond this initial transfer, her job was clear and very demanding. Have many children, especially sons, to carry on the family name and ensure its enduring future. She also had to manage the entire household, a huge, complex task in a bustling Viking longhouse. This meant preparing food, weaving cloth, making clothes, managing household slaves, and keeping everything running smoothly and efficiently. If she failed in these demanding duties, or if her behavior brought shame upon her husband, his anger could be terrifying and swift. A Viking husband held almost total, unquestionable power over his wife and household. Laws explicitly allowed him to beat his wife, often without fear of punishment from the community or law. This was not hidden. It was a brutal reality, accepted as part of a husband's absolute right to control his family. The ancient sagas, great stories, and detailed histories of the Vikings tell many chilling tales of these brutal acts. They speak of husbands using strength and explosive anger to enforce their will, often with horrific results. These stories were not just warnings, They were grim records of how life truly was for many women. One haunting saga tells of Hrolfur. His wife spoke to another man, perhaps too freely, perhaps just an innocent conversation. Hrolfur saw this as a direct challenge to his honor, an unforgivable insult that could not go unanswered. In a fit of explosive rage, he struck her, not with his bare hand, but with a heavy piece of iron. The blow was so powerful it shattered her face, causing terrible injury and deep, searing pain. Her agonizing screams might have filled the longhouse, but they were likely met with terrifying silence from others, too afraid to intervene. Such acts were a stark reminder of a husband's absolute, unchallenged power. After savagely striking his wife, Hrolfur did not stop. He grabbed her roughly by her hair, a painful, degrading hold, and mercilessly dragged her back across the floor. He yelled, his voice echoing menacingly in the wooden hall. "My honor is the law." This chilling statement meant that his personal pride and reputation were far more important than his wife's body or her feelings. No one in the community, no hesitant neighbor or trembling family member dared to stop him. The pervasive fear of challenging a powerful man, especially on matters of his honor, was simply too great. Even the mighty gods the Vikings worshipped seemed to agree with this harsh, patriarchal view of women. Myths and legends passed down through generations often showed male gods acting with deliberate cruelty and cunning towards their wives and female companions. These divine stories were not just entertainment, they served as powerful examples, profoundly shaping the way people thought about power and gender roles in their own lives. For instance, Odin, the Allfather, was known for profound wisdom, but also for his trickery and deceit. He often openly deceived his wife Frigg in his relentless pursuit of knowledge or power, consistently showing a troubling lack of trust and respect. The powerful god Thor, known for his immense strength and his formidable hammer, Mjolnir, was not above publicly shaming his wife Sif, even after she suffered a terrible indignity. These stories, where even the most powerful goddesses were subjected to the unpredictable whims of their husbands, painted a very clear and reinforcing picture for mortals. These myths profoundly taught the Viking people that men were inherently meant to rule, just as the gods ruled over the mortal world, and male gods ruled over their female counterparts, so too should husbands rule with absolute dominion over their wives. Wives were expected to obey their husbands completely, to follow commands without question, almost as if their husband was a living god within the household. This deeply ingrained belief made it even harder for women to challenge their husband's power or to seek any justice for mistreatment. But the longhouses held other dark truths, especially for other women living under the very same roof. The raids that brought riches and glory to Viking warriors also brutally brought back people, many of whom were taken as slaves. These enslaved women were known as thralls, their lives filled with unimaginable hardship, constant toil, and profound suffering. Many Viking men, especially those of significant wealth and power, had these thrall women in their households. They were captured during fierce, brutal raids on other lands, violently torn from their homes and families, and forcibly thrust into a life of abject servitude. They performed the hardest, dirtiest tasks, enduring brutal conditions and pervasive fear. Their existence was a stark, dehumanizing reminder of the harsh realities of the Viking world. A Viking wife, even in her position as the mistress of the house, had to grimly accept this cruel reality. She had to live alongside these thrall women, often watching them work tirelessly, their spirits visibly broken. Even more difficult, these enslaved women could be taken by her husband, forced to bear his children. These children, born of a thrall mother and Viking father, would grow up as half-siblings to the wife's own legitimate children. This created a complex and often emotionally painful situation within the household. The wife was forced to witness her husband's unfaithfulness, knowing she could do nothing to stop it. The thrall children, though they shared the same father, would often have a very different and much harder life than their legitimate half-siblings. Their very existence was a constant source of tension, resentment, and deep sorrow. Under the same roof, the lives of these two groups of children were dramatically different. The legitimate children of the wife, born free, were destined for a life of status and powers within Viking society. They would inherit land, participate in community affairs, and carry on the family name with pride. Their future was filled with possibility, though governed by the strict rules of their challenging time. The children born to thrall mothers, however, faced a bleaker and more uncertain outlook. They might be free if their father acknowledged them, but often they remained thralls, or at best, had a difficult, arduous path to freedom. Their lives were defined by their mother's enslaved status, forever marked by the shame and stigma of slavery. This vast difference in destiny, played out daily in the same household, highlighted the deep, entrenched inequalities that existed in Viking society. Yet even in this harsh world, where women faced constant oppression and brutality, some Viking women found desperate ways to fight back. Their defiance was often quiet, sometimes deadly, but it showed incredible strength of spirit. These acts of rebellion were not recorded in grand sagas, but in hushed whispers and grim, hidden truths. Some wives, driven to the absolute brink of desperation by relentless cruelty of their husbands, resorted to extreme measures. Stories tell of women who secretly poisoned their abusive spouses, mixing deadly herbs into their food or drink. Others, consumed by a burning desire for revenge, would set their longhouses ablaze while their husbands slept, engulfing the home and the man in consuming flames. These were not acts of sudden rage, but often calculated decisions born from prolonged, unbearable suffering. One famous saga vividly tells the story of Hallgerd, a woman known for her striking beauty and proud, unyielding, strong spirit. She was married to a man who, like many Viking husbands, believed he had the absolute right to control her completely. When he struck her, a deep insult and a painful act, Hallgerd did not cry or cower. Instead, she looked him directly in the eye and promised, with chilling, unwavering resolve, "That blow shall be repaid." Her defiant words hung heavy and ominous in the air, a chilling vow of future vengeance. Hallgerd harbored this promise, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to exact her revenge. Years later, in the brutal midst of a fierce battle, her husband found himself in a truly desperate situation. His bowstring snapped suddenly, and he desperately needed a strand of her famous hair to repair it. He called to Hallgerd, frantically begging her to give him some of her long, beautiful hair so he could continue fighting for his life. But Hallgerd, remembering the humiliating blow she had endured, coldly refused. "I will not," she stated plainly, allowing him to face death without her help. Her husband, unable to fight, soon perished in the battle. This was Hallgerd's brutal, yet profoundly silent, repayment for the violence he had inflicted upon her years before. However, such profound acts of defiance, even silent ones like Hallgerd's, were exceedingly rare. The risks were immense, and the consequences for discovery were utterly terrifying. Viking law was especially harsh and unforgiving when it came to women, giving husbands vast, almost unchecked power over their wives' lives and deaths. A man could legally kill his wife for a variety of reasons, many of which seem utterly shocking to us today. Infidelity or cheating was one major reason, seen as a deep dishonor to the husband's name and reputation. Accusations of witchcraft were another, often based on pervasive fear and dark superstition. But perhaps most chillingly, even bad housekeeping could be grounds for a husband to legally take his wife's life. This could mean anything from failing to keep the home impeccably clean, to mismanaging vital supplies, or simply not performing domestic duties to his exacting satisfaction. The terrifyingly vague nature of bad housekeeping gave husbands immense, arbitrary, and unchecked power. The brutal methods of punishment for such transgressions were invariably public and designed to inflict maximum terror. Wives accused of these offenses were often drowned, their lives slowly, agonizingly extinguished in cold water, perhaps a nearby lake, river, or the churning sea itself. Others were beheaded, a swift and bloody end carried out with a sharp axe or sword. Sometimes, after these grim executions, the woman's lifeless body was hung in a prominent public place, like a gibbet or a crossroads, for all to see. This horrifying public display served as a stark, chilling warning to other women in the community. It was a powerful message designed to instill profound fear and rigorously enforce obedience, making sure no one dared to challenge the established order or their husband's absolute authority. The ghastly sight of a hanged woman, Nemyen, was meant to ensure silent, terrorized compliance from every wife. And if a wife was accused of witchcraft, the horror grew much worse, reaching truly unimaginable levels. In Viking society, there was a deep-seated, superstitious fear of women who practiced certain types of magic, especially a potent form called seed. Seid was often seen as a dark art, connected to prophecy, shape-shifting, and controlling others. While some forms of seed might have been accepted, a woman using it in a way her husband or community profoundly disapproved of was considered extremely dangerous and malevolent. Men harbored a deep, irrational fear of women's hidden knowledge of potent herbs, their intuitive understanding of old spells, or any perceived mystical connection to the unseen world. If a wife was thought to be using Sid against her husband or for ill purposes, the accusations were taken very seriously indeed. This pervasive fear could easily turn into murderous rage, justifying the most terrible, barbaric punishments imaginable. The ultimate punishment for a wife accused of dangerous seed was horrifying beyond any descriptive words. Her husband, perhaps with the help of others, could brutally strip her naked, leaving her completely exposed, humiliated, and vulnerable. Then she would be systematically covered in sticky black tar, a thick, burning substance that relentlessly clung to her skin. After this agonizing, unbearable preparation, she would then be publicly set on fire. Her flesh would crackle and burn, her body slowly consumed by the roaring flames in a truly agonizing, prolonged death. It was a public and brutal spectacle, meticulously meant to cleanse her of evil and to strike profound terror into the hearts of any who dared to dabble in forbidden magic. The chilling memory of such a gruesome death would haunt and linger in the community for generations. It was solemnly believed that the heart-wrenching screams of these women as they suffered their terrible fate echoed far beyond the physical world. Their dying cries were said to carry malevolent, cursed spirits into the biting wind, spreading ill fortune and warning others against challenging the natural order. This grim, superstitious belief added another layer of fear to an already terrifying punishment. Would you survive in such a world where a simple accusation could lead to such horror? Yes or no? Tell me in the comments below. Yet, despite this pervasive darkness and male dominance, Viking women also had some surprising rights, which stand in stark contrast to the brutal treatment they often faced. In some areas, and at different times, Viking law allowed women a degree of independence remarkably uncommon in many other parts of early medieval Europe. This makes their lives even more complex, nuanced, and full of contradictions. For example, Viking women could own land in their own names, a very significant right indeed. This meant they could control their own property, make autonomous decisions about its use, and even sell it if they wished, providing a rare economic foothold. They also had the right to formally ask for a divorce from their husbands, a truly remarkable power for women in that patriarchal era. If a marriage became truly unbearable, a woman was, at least theoretically, not trapped forever. Furthermore, if a woman bravely initiated a divorce, she could often get her valuable dowry back, the valuable goods or land she had brought into the marriage. This financial independence was absolutely crucial, as it meant she might not be left utterly penniless and destitute after leaving a husband. It offered a practical, albeit risky, escape route, allowing her a genuine chance to rebuild her life away from an abusive or unhappy union. The process of divorce was formal and often involved specific, ritualistic words and multiple witnesses. A woman could publicly declare her intention to separate by saying, "I part from you as the sea from the shore," or similar poetic but profoundly legally binding phrases. She would say this before witnesses, often in front of her family and her husband's family, making the separation official and formally recognized by the community. After making such a declaration, she could theoretically walk away from the marriage, taking her dowry and personal belongings with her. This legal right offered a crucial glimmer of hope for women trapped in terrible marriages. However, the grim reality on the ground was often much harsher and more dangerous than the law suggested. Many furious husbands would refuse to accept the divorce. They would relentlessly hunt down their wives, brutally dragging them back to the longhouse by force or punishing them severely for daring to leave. So, while the legal framework offered some theoretical protections, the true power dynamics within Viking society meant that a woman's safety and freedom after a divorce were tragically never guaranteed. The ever-present threat of male violence often overshadowed any legal rights she possessed, making the courageous choice to leave a terrifying and potentially fatal gamble. Indeed, inside the walls of the home, a husband's power remained absolute, largely untouched by any legal niceties. The daily life of a Viking wife was a constant, grueling cycle of labor and submission. Her entire life revolved around diligently serving her husband and his complex household. She was expected to be the first to rise before dawn, starting the day's endless, demanding chores, preparing the morning meal, and tending to the essential fires. She would serve her husband first at every meal, waiting patiently until his needs were fully met before taking her own. She would also be the last to go to sleep at night, ensuring all tasks were completed and everyone else was settled. This relentless schedule and constant subservience deeply reinforced her perpetually subordinate role within the patriarchal family structure. Disobedient wives, those who dared to question or challenge their husband's authority, were not just beaten. They were often publicly shamed in visible, humiliating ways. These cruel punishments were meticulously designed to humiliate them and utterly break their spirit. Stories from the sagas describe wives being forced to kneel on cold, rough stones for agonizing hours, knees aching and bruised as a painful penance for their defiance. In the brutal northern winters, some disobedient wives were even made to kneel on sharp snow or unforgiving ice, enduring excruciating freezing temperatures and searing pain of frostbite. These public acts of shaming were not just physical torture, they were powerful tools of social control, unmistakably showing the entire community the grim consequences of a wife stepping out of line. The chilling message was brutally clear: obey or suffer terribly. Even death might not bring complete freedom or peace for some Viking women. Archaeological discoveries have painted a chilling and haunting picture of their final rest. In some ancient burial sites, archaeologists have found the skeletal remains of Viking women buried with heavy iron shackles, still cruelly clamped around their wrists and ankles. These deeply unsettling findings raise disturbing, profound questions about their lives and the nature of their deaths. What do these shackles truly mean? Some historians and archaeologists believe they represent a symbolic act of unwavering loyalty, perhaps signifying that the woman was meant to be forever bound to her husband or family, even in the afterlife. It could have been a strange sign of her importance, or a potent ritualistic way to ensure her spirit remained dutifully close. However, a darker interpretation suggests a more sinister, chilling reason. These shackles might have been a final, calculated, and utterly cruel punishment, meant to ensure that even in death, a defiant woman could not wander or escape her husband's absolute control. It could have been an eternal warning, a way to prevent her spirit from causing trouble, or simply a last act of dominance over a woman who dared to resist in life. The grim truth remains a mystery, adding another profound layer of horror to their existence. The great Viking sagas, their epic stories of battles, kings, and heroes, tell us much about their society, but they also reveal a shocking truth through what they don't say, through their profound silences. These long, detailed narratives proudly boast of men's bravery in combat, their cleverness in politics, and daring voyages across vast oceans. They meticulously name every king, every warrior, every ship that sails to glory and triumphs. Yet, when it comes to women, especially wives, the sagas are often strikingly and deliberately silent. They rarely speak of their inner lives, personal hopes, or individual experiences. Women are often mentioned only fleetingly, in passing, if at all. Their compelling stories are pushed to the background, serving only to further a man's central narrative, never truly taking center stage. In these grand tales, women were frequently unnamed, referred to simply as the wife or the mother, stripping them of individual identity. Their roles were rigidly limited to specific functions: serving meals, bearing children, managing the home. Once these crucial duties were performed, or once their particular role in a man's story was complete, they would often abruptly disappear from the narrative altogether. Their lives, their struggles, their individual voices were simply not deemed important enough to be formally recorded for posterity. This crushing silence itself is a profound form of brutality. It is a historical erasure, a deliberate and calculated act of making women's experiences invisible. By not speaking of them, by not naming them, the sagas effectively and cruelly removed Viking women from history. Their stories were tragically lost, their vital contributions forgotten, and their very existence diminished, leaving us with only fragmented clues to piece together their challenging lives. But even in this crushing silence, some women found incredibly subtle yet profoundly powerful ways to speak. They left behind tiny, poignant, personal messages, hidden in plain sight on the objects they used every day. These were not grand public declarations, but intimate, private cries, carefully carved into their most personal belongings, destined for hidden discovery. Archaeologists have discovered beautiful combs, intricate brooches, and other small artifacts with secret runes carefully etched onto them. These ancient runes, usually used for practical communication or mystical magic, sometimes carried a deeply personal message from the women who owned them. They were raw whispers across centuries, small but incredibly powerful acts of defiance against a world that tried to silence them completely. One such carved message, found on an ancient comb, bravely and defiantly declared, "He beat me, but I endured." Another, etched into a brooch, carried a potent, vengeful curse against an abusive husband. "May Thor strike him as he struck me." These tiny inscriptions were raw, utterly honest expressions of deep pain, unwavering resilience, and a profound longing for justice, a testament to their astonishing strength in suffering. These extraordinary women fought back not with heavy swords or open rebellion, but with the potent weapons of memory and quiet defiance. Their words, painstakingly carved onto bone and iron, became eternal whispers, miraculously surviving the centuries to tell their harrowing tales. They, in their own unique way, ensured their experiences, however brutal, would not be completely erased, finding a lasting voice in the most unexpected places. What time are you watching this? Morning, afternoon, or night? Comment below and let us know. Yet despite the slow, gradual arrival of new ideas and the eventual widespread spread of Christianity, the old Viking ways, especially concerning women, died incredibly hard. Christianity earnestly tried to introduce new concepts of mercy, equality, and the sanctity of marriage, aiming to end practices like slavery and the constant cycle of blood vengeance. But the deep-seated customs and fiercely held beliefs of the Vikings were stubbornly resistant and not easily replaced. Even as late as the 12th century, long after the official conversion to Christianity in many Nordic lands, shocking and barbaric traditions stubbornly persisted. Women would sometimes wear their visible bruises, grim marks of their husband's anger, almost as twisted badges of honor. They were astonishingly proud to have survived a man's harsh hand, enduring the intense pain and systemic violence that was, shockingly, considered a normal, expected part of a Viking marriage. In a truly twisted reversal of fundamental values, some communities believed that a wife who had never felt her husband's hand, who had never been subjected to his physical discipline, was somehow cursed or inherently incomplete. She was seen as untested, as if she hadn't truly proven herself worthy of her husband or crucial role. This deeply ingrained belief reveals the dark, profound truth. Viking marriage was often built not on genuine affection or mutual respect, but entirely on the wife's sheer endurance, her capacity to withstand hardship and pain. But even in this incredibly harsh and brutal world, where dominance and suffering were tragically common, glimmers of genuine, heartfelt love sometimes miraculously existed. The resilient human heart, it seems, can find profound connection even through the deepest cracks of the hardest, most oppressive societies. Not all marriages were cold transactions or endless battles. Sometimes, against all odds, true warmth blossomed. Some sagas, though undeniably rare, tell of couples who truly loved each other deeply, sharing a profound bond until their dying day. There are archaeological findings of pairs buried together in the same ship, their hands tenderly clasped in death, a powerful silent testament to a love that endured beyond life itself. Swords were often reverently crossed above them, symbolizing a shared journey and mutual respect, standing in stark, poignant contrast to the grim, shackled burials that hinted at darker fates. These rare and beautiful stories and findings suggest that humanity found a way to connect, to genuinely love, and to form true, reciprocal partnerships, even within the strict, often cruel, and undeniably confining structures of Viking society. These were the cherished exceptions, perhaps, but they serve as a powerful reminder that the human spirit always seeks connection, empathy, and nurture to genuine love, even when it seems utterly impossible. Still, for the vast majority of Viking women, life was an unrelenting, constant test of survival, a daily, grueling struggle against powerful forces beyond their control. Most Viking wives lived under the crushing weight of their husband's absolute, unquestionable power, their entire lives meticulously dictated by his arbitrary whims and his fragile honor. They feared gods who, as their myths showed, were often cruel, deceptive, and indifferent, providing little genuine comfort or justice. The punishments mercilessly meted out to them often blurred the fundamental lines between what was considered justly fair and truly unspeakable evil. A husband's explosive anger, consistently fueled by tradition and law, could unleash terrifying, unrestrained violence without any meaningful consequence. There was tragically little legal recourse for a woman, little realistic hope for escape from the pervasive, crushing cycle of control and fear. So when you hear the epic tales of Viking heroes, of their incredible strength and their daring adventures, remember the quiet, enduring women who faithfully waited back in the longhouses. Remember their unseen strength, their quiet, unwavering resilience, and their immense daily sacrifices. These women tirelessly kept vital fires burning through long, dark, brutal winters, raised children often alone for years, while their husbands raided and paid the ultimate tragic price for a man's honor, pride, and power. This darker, often deliberately unspoken story of pervasive control, deep-seated fear, and silent, desperate rebellion is as much an integral part of Viking history as any famous battle or grand exploration. It is carved not just in runes, but in the very bones and grave goods found in ancient burial sites across the Nordic landscape. This hidden reality, the profound and often brutal truth of how Viking husbands treated their wives, truly shows the complex, multifaceted, often undeniably brutal, and always utterly fascinating reality of who the Vikings truly were, beyond the myth of the horned helmet. This was not just a marriage. For many, it was a weapon of power and control. If this story shocked you and opened your eyes to a different side of history, help us reach 1,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button right now. Also, tell me in the comments which other hidden historical scandal or shocking truth you want us to uncover next.